Hey, welcome to the More Than Velocity podcast. I'm Jordan Osguera. Bart Pear is out today, but with us, as always, is Ryan Croton. And today we have Matt Unthank, working both on the crossover and the arm care side. And today, our guest is the head coach of Northeastern Junior College Baseball, Andrew Kachel. I'm wearing my Northeastern gear. Me and Ryan were out there roughly a year ago doing some work. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew. If you don't mind, you have a pretty storied background as a player. I didn't realize you had done so much. It was actually pretty cool. Like you've done a lot of things. If you don't mind kind of starting, at the origin story and running us through kind of how you got to Northeastern.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you, Jordan, Ryan. Hey, you guys were as much a part of this past Springs Region Championship as anyone on coaching staff. So thank you for everything you guys did for our program. Excited to be here today. Kind of as Jordan talked about, I was fortunate. I had a great upbringing, was surrounded by great coaches at a young age, and fortunately, because of that, I got some pretty neat opportunities at a young age. I was fortunate. I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Colorado is known for baseball, right? Cold climate state, big city. I did go to a large high school, but I was very fortunate. I got to play for an individual named Mark Swope, who, in my opinion, is one of the best high school coaches in the state of Colorado. He he actually lost at a state championship once again this past spring. He's been to a number of state titles, but was fortunate to play for Mark Swope. Also was fortunate to grow and develop, learn from an individual named Bill Percy. I mean, Coach Percy's resume, we wouldn't have, that would take the 25 minutes in itself on the podcast to talk about everything he's accomplished and everywhere he's coached. But he's coached Croatian national team, World Baseball Classic, couple gold medals. He's been around the block. So, like I said, I mean, with those two individuals in my life, I was very fortunate at a young age to learn a lot about the game. That presented some pretty neat opportunities. I got to play on the Connie Mack World Series team coming out of high school. I was fortunate enough to play for Dick Birmingham, who's another legend in himself across the country. He's an ABCA Hall of Famer. But I played on the Pan American team in the Goodwill Games in Aruba. We got to face some guy named Xander Bogarts in the Aruba national team. But real fortunate to have had a good upbringing. Parents were supportive, had great coaches, got some neat opportunities, and in a long roundabout way, I ended up here in Cowtown, USA, at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado. After, ironically, I had transferred from a school in Illinois. Real fortunate, got to be here and be a part of the school's first ever region championship team. Got to experience a dog pile as a player, and then went on, finished up my career at Montana State Billings. I won't lie to you, probably enjoyed too much of the fly fishing and the duck hunting and all the other beauties and qualities of the state of Montana. But at that point in my career, unfortunately, I'd spent more time in a sling in college than I had spent on a field. So I was fortunate right out of Billings to get my foot in the door at CSU Pueblo, for same thing, Hall of Fame coach Stan Sanchez, and he gave me my first opportunity to get my feet wet and learn as a college coach. And it, ironically enough, he was looking for a pitching guy, and it was something that I was comfortable with. I was a catcher my entire career. I'd had tremendous coaches, like I said, in Mark Swope and others growing up. So I'd listened to pitching coaches my entire life, but I hadn't done the Monday through Friday, what are you doing outside bullpens and game day? So ironically, that's where this whole journey began way back when, where I reached out to some guy named Dugan Moran, who had, crossover symmetry at the time, and it's now grown into ArmCare. And Dugan, I mean, I owe him the world, because I was a 22-year-old who knew nothing about being a pitching coach, besides what to teach them during a bullpen or on game day. And Dugan's really who helped me kind of create that foundation what's a throwing progression look like? What's your throwing program? What's your, PFP day-to-day work? And it's grown and developed from there. So I got my feet wet as a pitching coach at CSU Pueblo. Was fortunate. We had co-RMAC pitchers of the year that year, kind of bringing in ArmCare for the first time and doing crossover symmetry. We went to an RMAC championship, and then things have just kind of grown from there. From there, I was fortunate to have had success. I got the job at Adams State. I got to bring back the baseball program at Adams State University after, they'd had a 36-year hiatus from Title IX, and got to start a program from scratch. And to go from no program, 0 players, to 70 some true freshmen playing Division II baseball. And, year one, we looked like it. And by year two, almost every pitching category, we were right there in the top of the conference behind, Colorado Mesa, who's a nationally ranked program. By year three, we made the conference tournament. So, that's where, for me, having spent my career, unfortunately, more so in a sling than on the field, I wanted to make sure that when I had the opportunity to, step across the foul lines and kind of now take a different role going into my coaching career, I wanted to make sure that I was educated, that I gave guys every opportunity to stay healthy, to stay on the field, to have tools and resources to be successful in baseball, but keep them on the field and allow them to enjoy the full experience and not spend time in a sling like I had. And that's really where it started. And I've been real fortunate, like I said, from CSU Pueblo. The success we had there with crossover led to opportunities at Adams State, and to take a brand new program from scratch to a conference tournament within 3 years, that led to opportunities at the University of Sioux Falls. I went up there as a recruiting coordinator, pitching coach, and then it all came full circle. And, I ended up back here at Northeastern as the head assistant, got to coach my brother, which, is something I'll never take for granted. Lots of dads get to coach their sons, but it's not too often that, a brother gets to coach a brother in college. So got to come back here and, see him be an all conference guy. And then when it, got to be the one fortunate enough to take the program over. And for the past 5 years, it's just kind of been, continuing to work and grind and close the gap on taking this program to where we think, it can be, hopefully on a national level, and with, great help like the two of you that are sitting on here today. I think we're getting there. We're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, so like I said, it's not a very short resume on there. It's pretty storied background. But Ryan, what do you got before you echo through the lobby there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
But my whole thing, I think, when I was with everybody, was just seeing how much you can do with the technology. I think that was just incredible. I'd love to have you speak a little bit about how the logistic implementation of the ArmCare system, impacted everything. Because what I saw is just one coach when we were there, and then, Coach Percy coming in and out, managing all of this, especially, your background in catching, how that's really, helped you. If you could comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've been real lucky to have been with crossover now with all the way up to through ArmCare. So I was always familiar with the bands, and then every year it seemed there's something new coming out with crossover or now ArmCare. There's always something new, and Dugan's been great about immediately calling and passing that along. I think twisting my arm a little bit, but this past 2 years with now the ArmCare app, it's been, huge for me specifically. Ironically, I was talking with someone yesterday about this, how, the app is, in reality, it's been my built-in pitching coach, to where there's so much data and so much analytics and so much information. I think it allows every coach, every staff, and every player to do as much with it as they want or as little with it as they want, but it gives you some freedom. I think, right away, the one thing I really like is the daily check-ins, something as simple as the daily check-ins where, players, true 18-year-olds, true freshmen, they're always afraid of the big bad wolf of the head coach, the first couple months. So they're hesitant to, they don't have that relationship yet with you and might still be a little hesitant. So to have that app is simple to check in and see how they slept that day. How's their arm feeling? They're always going to tell coach their arm feels great, but they'll tell that phone that they might have a little soreness, in August or September when they first get on campus. But that you have that to rely on, and that now opens the door and the avenue to create those relationships. I think in those conversations with players to be like, hey, I saw your arm was a little sore today. Is that correct? And they're like, yeah, and it just kind of eases that and makes it seamless. So, I mean, number one, something as simple as the daily check-ins, I really think, especially at the junior college level with so many true freshmen, creates those conversations and helps build the foundation for conversations. So, for me, that's number one. And then as you go into the app, I mean, being able to rely on, I mean, we had one guy this spring who he'd had a little shoulder, soreness, and immediately to be able to go to him and be like, hey, did we take our post exam? How are we feeling? He's like, well, I hadn't taken a test in a week or two. And to be able to see immediately the moment he tested that his shoulder balance was not where it needed to be. So we were able to catch it and shut him down and kind of, adjust his weights program to a 3-to-1 ratio, as you'll learn if you take the courses. And within 2 weeks, we had him, back and throwing, and that's something that I can guarantee you. 5, 6, 7 years ago, when I was a young pitching coach, we would have never caught that quickly, that simply, and been able to fix that quickly. To where it might have been something where a kid ends up being shut down for an entire year because you're going back and forth with shoulder pain. Where, we immediately knew how to catch it, how to fix it, the game plan to put forth not only baseball and throwing, but in the weight room and with the physical therapist and with our trainer. And he was someone that we got back on the field, and it was like he never missed a beat. Yes, he missed 2-3 weeks, but 2-3 weeks is better than an entire spring. So, those are things that I truly, truly like. And then last but not least, I'll be the first person to tell you, like I said, I've been here 7 years, 5, having taken the program over. And in my first 3-4 years, COVID doesn't really count. So my first 4 years, I'd only let one pitcher go over 100 pitches. Okay. And it was a no-hitter. And we still had some arm issues here and there. Well, in the last 2 years, I've had over a dozen guys go over 100 pitches. We've had no arm injuries. We've had no guys shut down. We've had no Tommy John's rotator cuffs, but now we have data, and for instance, in the Region 9 championship game, Andrej Vank, our number one from the Czech Republic, I did my check-in in about the 6th inning where I went out to him as he's coming off, and he immediately just looks at me and goes, don't talk to me till I'm at 130. That's what I'm approved for. And I just smiled and smirked and walked away, to where there was no way I was letting him go 130, but he knew he had that confidence that he'd PR'd that day. His arm was feeling good. He's approved for 130 pitches. And until he's anywhere close to 130, get away from him. Don't talk to him. So I think it's also the kids now have data and they have information, they have facts and stats that almost kind of support how their arm's feeling, to where if they are feeling good that day and they know they PR'd and they can see the numbers and the stats, like, hey, I'm good, I'm strong, it's going to be a good day, and stay away from me, to where it almost reinforces, I think on a good day when they're feeling good, like, well, I've also got data to show like it's going to be a good day. It helps build that confidence and I think reinstill that. So, I mean, there's so much information. We could probably spend 25 minutes on this alone, but those are kind of the key points that for me, I mean, I've fallen in love with and I've learned more about in the last, 2 years when it really comes to arm health and arm care than, I'll be honest, I knew or had learned about in the previous, 12.
I love that story, and we'll definitely be using that at some point. I think that's awesome testimonial to empowering a player to say, hey, this is what you got. And I think a lot of coaches are afraid of arm care, thinking it's going to get in a player's head. They're going to think, oh, I'm weak or I'm hurt right now. I can't pitch. But I hear many more stories like yours where players are actually feeling more equipped and more powerful to go out and push their full capacity. I'm curious, when you started rolling out arm care, what was, were players excited? Was there pushback? What was the general reception there?
No, I think, especially in today's, you know, game or today's world, um, it's what can you do for me? You call those recruits, and we're in the midst of it right now. The transfer portal's open. Kids are looking for new homes. It's always what can you do for me? What sets apart, your program from every other program? So, there's the good and the bad of today's era and culture of athletics. But the one thing that I think is a real positive is today, more so, I think, than any other time period. I mean, kids want to learn. They want information. I have an old coach who jokes around that this is the why generation, to where you tell them to do something and immediately they want to know the why. Why do they need to do it that way? They need an explanation. They want information. So, when we first ran this program out, fortunately, I also think it's hopefully, I would think, a little bit of the culture and how do you instill it and bring it in. And then kind of how receptive is your pitching staff. But I mean, we were fortunate last year. I mean, we had a pitching staff that, when it was all said and done, led the country in strikeouts per nine, to where it was a very talented, very mature pitching staff. That same thing, they wanted information. They wanted to learn, wanted to grow. I thought that the moment we rolled this out, it was like, watching a bunch of 6-year-olds open presents on Christmas morning, to where what's behind the next package, to where they loved watching the videos. Okay, how are we going to test? What's the next step? How do I use the testing? What do the numbers mean? And there was so many questions, to where you could tell in the first 2 weeks of rolling the program out that I already knew I was going to be bugging Dugan way more than I probably should, because the kids were asking so many good quality questions where they wanted more information. And, hey, what's this mean? How do I use this? So, to me, I think, in today's day and age, they spend so much time on their phones, and whether it's YouTube videos or analysis, or they're always on, X, Twitter, and they want information. They want to be able to see data. TrackMan's a huge thing nowadays, and spin rates. So, I mean, data. They love it. And I think, for our group, they're extremely receptive. And I think every year it's kind of, like they always say, what you put into it, you reap what you sow. What you put into it, you get out of it. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, same thing. We've had back-to-back Region 9 pitchers of the year since we've started ArmCare. 2 years of ArmCare, we've been to 2 region championships. 2 years of ArmCare, we've had the 2 Region 9 pitchers of the year. And ironically enough, the 2 Region 9 pitchers of the year are, I mean, the 2 guys that have lived and died by the ArmCare app. And I mean, they're fully bought in. They're putting in their pre-bands, post-bands. They want to know where their scores are at, where their shoulder balances are at. They're guys that are 110%, invested in the ArmCare app.
Awesome.
Yeah, and real quick, I went out to go see that last conference game that Vank threw, and it was probably one of the best college pitching displays I'd seen all year. And I've been going to, obviously, with our connections to ArmCare, with a bunch of Big 12 games here in Utah. Whenever someone's in town playing Utah or BYU, I'm swinging in to talk with those coaches, and he threw probably the best college game, if not the second best, that I've seen all year. So he's done a lot of really good work. Pretty amazing when it comes down to it.
And same, like I said, I love that this is your foundation, but it gives you the freedom to put into it as much as you want or as least as you want. Vonk's a guy, he loves his weighted balls. He loves some of the velocity program type stuff, and in the past I was extremely hesitant with the weighted balls, or the velocity training, the turn and burns, some of those type things. So to now, same thing, have something as simple in the app with the SVR and the strength velocity ratio and where a guy's arms at, and are they approved? Are they safe to do it? And same, I've got an example from the first year we did it where we had a left-handed arm who went on to pitch Division I baseball, has had a very good career, but for about a 5-month stretch, kept having shoulder impingement, shoulder pain, and I kept going back to him with like, we have this app that says you probably shouldn't be throwing those weighted balls, but you keep throwing them, so why don't we just buy in for just trust the process, buy in, let's put the weighted balls down for a little while and buy into the program. And until we're approved and the app says we're safe to do it, don't touch your weighted balls. And it was amazing how for 5 months we go forward, we go backward, we go forward, we go backward. He finally puts down the weighted balls. He gets on the program and on ArmCare and buys in, and then all of a sudden come spring, no more arm pain. So it's one of those things too where like I said, Vonk this past year really loves his weighted ball stuff, and that's what I like about this is guys, here's our foundation. We have to do the basics, the bare minimum. I'm requiring you of that. But now, hey, if you like velocity training and you like your weighted balls and you like the additional, you can do it as long as the app says that you are safe to do it, approved to do it. We won't stand in your way and we'll allow that. But now we have facts, we have data, that make sure if you like to be rocky road instead of vanilla and add a little extra, that's fine. Okay, we just want to make sure that you're safe and doing things proper and according to the app, and we're not putting the arm in jeopardy.
Yeah, you talked about this being the Y generation, and we built the app that player can, without any sort of exercise science or knowledge about, what's going on in the body, can just look at the app and say, okay, this is what I'm doing today. But obviously, these players are saying, Coach, what does this mean? My external rotation score is low. What does that mean? Why am I doing this? Whatever. And that's why we came out with this extra education that we can get, coaches like you equipped to answer all those questions. And you were one of the first programs that adopted the accelerator course. I'm curious about your experience with that and what you took out of that course that, other coaches might be, interested in bringing Ryan and Jordan in to, kind of hold hands through the ArmCare system and show how everything's implemented. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I felt fortunate because I felt like I had a pretty good idea of what was going on and how to do it. And I'll be the first one to tell you the same thing. In the 3 days that these guys came in and worked with our program, it was like going to kindergarten all over again, to where, back to square one. There's so much more information that you grasp and learn, that in reality, the moment they walk you through it, it seems so simple. You're like, oh man, the light bulb goes on. You're like, why haven't I ever thought of it that way? Like, that makes so much sense. But, I guess kind of the old school way of baseball that you're brought up through. I mean, for instance, like with pitching in itself, pitching is the one instance or one thing in any sport where, intensity goes up, pitch count, workload goes up nonstop, to where that's not how you train in a weight room. You're not going to go throw a 45-pound plate, on the bench press, and then the following week throw another 45-pound plate on, and then increase to now 20 reps, and then the following week throw another 45-pound weight on, and then go to 30 reps. To where if you don't train that way in the weight room, why do we do that the exact same way with pitch counts and how we treat pitchers typically every January when you're getting them ready to go into, the season in the spring? So, I mean, just simple thought processes and teachings like that, where the moment they say it, it hits you in the face. Like, I've done this wrong my entire life. And so is probably 98% of every pitching coach and coaching staff across the country. So, I mean, learning about that, learning about, how do we train, not just the app, how are we making sure that our weight room and what we're doing from a strength phase isn't, battling, with our throwing progression, to where now our fatigue rate with the weight room is battling our fatigue from throwing, to where we can't get stronger because no matter what, they're fatigued in some way, shape, or form, whether it's weights and in the weight room or whether it's on the field from bullpens and pitching. And same thing, those are things that as a coach, you don't even think about. You're like, well, we have to have a weights program, but being able to think about how we can get these two to work hand in hand and together are things that don't really cross your mind when you're in the middle of recruiting and mowing a field and running a program. There's so many other details. You're just like, well, we have weights, check. So to be able to do things more seamlessly and at a higher level, with a thought process, with detail behind everything that we're doing, was really, really huge to kind of learn how can we adjust our training. That we jumped on a week long or an hour long Zoom call after these guys had come out, and I had so many questions about, like, well, here's how we're currently lifting, what we're lifting, when we're lifting, but here's when we bullpen, and here's when here's when we play typically, Saturday, Sundays, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So how can we adjust this to make it better so that we're not going to end up in a situation where we're overtraining, or creating fatigue. And the thing I really liked was that when Jordan and Ryan came out to spend time with our program, it wasn't just throwing, it wasn't just pitchers, it wasn't just arm care, it was everything, to where they included the position players. We talked about, the hip core bands and how we can be better with hip mobility and explosiveness in position players, and how things, translate to base running or to hitting, to your core, with throwing or swinging. It was a full, educational experience for not only our pitchers, but for our position players, for our coaching staff. It was myself, the assistants. For our training staff, we had both athletic trainers here. We brought out the softball team. We brought out our athletic director. Our president stopped by to come watch and peek in and learn. Our volleyball team, because volleyball is such an overhead sport with overhead hitting and overhead swinging. These were all things. Same. Our basketball coach came out and talked about, well, same thing. They have a high rate of fatigue or ankle sprains, and what are some other things that they can do with ankle mobility and adjusting their warm-up process and some of their, bouncing and jumps and things to help their dynamic warm-up or their stretch to help better prepare them in athletic play. So, there was so much information across the board. This wasn't just arms, shoulders, elbows. This was a full body experience. This was sitting down and talking with their guys about nutrition. What are they eating? What are they putting in their body? Listening to Ryan talk about, the power of beets. And then within a week later, having my cafeteria call me to be like, is there something I don't know about? Because like the baseball team ate the next 3 months supply of beets in the last week. So we need more beets. And is there anything else that we should be ordering more of, food-wise, nutrition-wise, that maybe we need a heads up on? So, true story. You can't make this stuff up. You have the head cafeteria lady calling because our team ate too many beets out of the cafeteria. So, to get the full experience from nutrition to full body dynamic, and then yes, ArmCare, the app. Here's your data. What's it mean? To now also have those nice flow charts where when they are new, okay, here's your flow chart. Okay, here's what we popped up. We've got a watch, or we've got a warning. How do we now adjust today's, throwing program, whether it's daily throwing, whether it's a bullpen day, where are we at in our training and how do we adjust it? Are we going to maybe decrease the workload by 60%? It was just so educational to kind of make it free and seamless, but also to put the accountability back on the players, on the young men of like, I think Ryan says, it's your body, so you need to take care of your body. Your body's a temple, all that, to where, to put the accountability back on them of what are they feeling, where are they at in their training, listening to their arm, how to adjust it if you're feeling something. When those guys left, for the rest of the year, like I said, I got to now be head coach. I got to manage. I got to do check-ins. I didn't have to instill and drive the program day to day. Here's what we're doing, how to do it. It was, they knew what to do, and if they had questions, they now knew what the questions were, what to ask. And it gave them the opportunity to now kind of drive their own success and their own career, their own training.
I think for me, just being able to go there and educate, I could probably, speak for Jordan too. It was just amazing being, you think that what we offer is a D1 offering, but as a junior college, you're doing things like a D1 with the communication, the people involved. It's just amazing.
Yeah, my big takeaway from the trip was culture, right? So the way that I kind of want to, throw my last 2 cents in there is we went in there, every single player was bought into that team culture, that environment, and you don't see that in this world of what can you do for me. You talked about that a little bit earlier on the recruiting process. Is that does play a part of it, but then these players come in, they go, well, what can we do to benefit our program? How can we help the guy next to us? And it was an awesome atmosphere, fantastic culture. I went to go watch a couple games and just everyone pulling in together to try to win. That pack the park night was awesome, and then being able to see you guys come out here to Salt Lake where I am was, there was fight the whole way. You guys didn't really finish the season the way you wanted to, but they were still just trying to peck away and get back into that game. And you saw those guys fighting, and that's a culture thing. So you don't see that too often, where a culture is that well ingrained. But that's why you have success with what you've been doing. That's why you've had that history and learned and grown. And I've already told Andrew, I've told Ryan, I've told everybody. It's like, shoot, you need me to come out there, I'll come out there. It doesn't matter. I think it's a great culture. I like being around it. And it's something that if someone has not gone to a Northeastern game, it is worth the flight to Denver, the short little 70-minute drive, realistically. Go watch a game. It's awesome experience. It's a great ballpark. And what is that's occurring there? I think it's one of the last few things that you're seeing what college baseball used to be. I know, Ryan, you like a lot of the guys on Instagram, or not Instagram, LinkedIn, that are always posting all the videos of how much they hate where college baseball's at. I left a comment on one of them and said, well, I was just out at Northeastern and they played the game right. So for me, if someone wants to go see a legit college baseball game, this is a great place to go. If you're a player looking for somewhere, it's an awesome place to look at it. They've done an accelerator, so they must be way ahead of everybody. But again, for me, that's what I have to say about it.
I really appreciate it. I mean, to me, since I've taken the program over, our mantra, our quote has been, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so to me, that's where the app and ArmCare fits in perfectly with what our embedded culture, our mantra is to where, if you're the guy who will get up and get in the weight room, you're probably the guy who's going to make A's and make good grades, in the classroom. You're the guy that's going to be excited to do your 1 hour of community service every week. And then fast forward to Saturday, you're probably the guy that we can count on, to get that timely hit, or to make that, field that routine ground ball and throw it 120 feet across the field, with 2 outs with runners at second and third to get that final out, to where, and then now transitioning that to the app to where, here you go, here's your accountability. You have it laid out for you. You know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. The app has videos if you don't know how to do it. To me, the app just fit, I thought, perfectly with our culture, our mantra, our belief of how you do anything is how you do everything. You were right. We had a very successful year. We were very fortunate. Like I said, we won the Region 9 championship. We went to a Western District final. We had over 20 guys make the dean's list. We're going to be an academic All-American team. These guys bought in every way, shape, form. And oh, by the way, we did it with 95% freshmen this year, to where, it's not very often that you only have 5 sophomores. and you have that many young, true freshmen that have never, tasted college baseball, go into a season and have this level of success. I mean, we broke almost every school record that this program's had in 28 years of the program. Last year and this year are the two best ERAs in program history versus metal bats. Cough, cough, hint, hint, ArmCare works. Like I said, the amount of success that this program's had, in reality, like I said, I owe to the players, the coaching staff, all the help, Ryan, Jordan, Dugan, that I've had. So, we've been real fortunate. And to me now it's the exciting part to where no one expected anything out of 40 some odd freshmen this year. Next year's the year where, okay, we got the target on our back, and people now know that hopefully, this is a program that's taking the steps in the right direction to where all eyes are on us next year. And to me, next year's the year to where people are expecting you to do something, to where I'm hoping we can build on the level of success and the foundation that's here, but we can maintain it, and not just maintain it, but continue to strive forward, in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think the beats definitely has something to do with all that success. Don't undersell that. If that's the biggest issue you have with your team is eating out all the beats at the cafeteria, you got a pretty good squad. Well, Ryan, Jordan, do you guys have anything else you want to ask, or we want to keep you all day, Coach Kachel? But this has been really great. I'm sure we'll have you on again. You're just such a clear and effective communicator. We'd love to hear more, not only about what you're doing with ArmCare, but how you're running a team. So until then, we'll sign off for the day. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.